Hello, welcome back to my channel, Checks, Captures, Threats, and in today's episode, in episode 15, we'll be going over how to attack. Hopefully you'd watched the last episode, the quiz. It was 12 questions about how to use the piece effectively. Anyway, in today's video, there's 4 examples of how to attack. So the first one will be when you castle kingside, for example, using the pawns on the other side of the board. The second example will be using the piece combinations to attack the king, and also using it as a decoy. Then the third example will be castling the other way than them and using the pawns to attack their king. And the last example is going over what a sacrifice is and how it can be useful. So, let's get going. In this first example here we have a position from the Queen's Gambit declined. Hopefully you understand that, seeing this pawn structure. Now, what we can do here is, as you see, this king side is quite locked in. You know, it's got his pieces all in good squares. As we've said before, this is kind of the best way you can defend. Now, what we can do is, here, we've kind of got this structure as well. We're all protected in here, but this queen side is not really doing anything, and it's good to make sure you use the whole board. So you don't want to just attack in like this half over here. You want to kind of attack, you know, you might want to put attacking over this side, and then also what we're going to do is show you how just pushing your pawns up here. So as you see, after 2 moves, we're slowly just getting this pawn structure built up, and then soon we can look at moves like, if I just make another move, we can attack here. You know, we can put pressure on them, and if they capture, look, we're putting pressure on his knight. And then we bring our pawn up. So what this shows is how we're pushing a pawn, that we're making sure we are being careful over here in case they make any attacks, anything. But then also over here, we want to also pursue our own plan. We don't want to always stop their plan and do our plan. You always want to try and, you know, do multitask almost, you know. Because after you get a push like this, you know, whether you want to try and attack his piece or you want to stop every piece here, you can make him have a really bad bishop, for example, here, you know. So it's just making sure you try and get the pawns to, even if they capture here, you know, you've still got the pawn structure. I mean, yes, it's one less pawn, but you can use that almost with the bishop. So this is just going over how use your pawns on the other side of the board as well. Now in the second example, as we remember on episode 12 about how to use the queen effectively, we was going over how the queen and the knight were very good. So in this position, as we've kind of had that position before, if we move a knight to g5 here, for example, remembering that we got the short range and long range piece, obviously this is be checkmate if they don't block it. So they have a few ways to block it. Now this is good because using piece combinations to attack has many benefits. So firstly, they might have to block. So let's say they blocked like this, obviously stopping the threat, so we can't do it. As I've said before, this is obviously kind of ruins their king structure, as we have a black coloured bishop, so we'd be able to get into their defence quite easily. If they tried to, if they captured, it's probably the best option they have. We have now got a very good bishop. If we look at the pieces here, you know, we have so much more attack over them, and this queen still staring down at the king. You know, we're much better here. I mean, if they tried anything else, like pushing this pawn, it's the same thing. You know, if anything, you know, may open his rook up, but this king, it's probably worse because it keeps the knight and queen that somehow they might be able to attack this square. So remember to use the piece combinations, and this is kind of what decoy is. So we kind of maybe pretend as if we're trying to do this checkmate. Now obviously we'd love to hopefully see that they miss this, but that's probably not going to happen. So we almost try and lead them into doing this sort of thing, which all you got to do is, if you don't like this, now you just go back and you've kept the defence as much as you want, and you've ruined their pawn structure. You know, you might want to do this because you don't like this knight, and in the end game you want to use your bishop, so they're going to trade off, and now as you see here, there you go, you've got a very open bishop. So just remembering to use piece combination is always necessary. Now example 3 here, we're going to have castling the other way. So obviously remember we can castle queenside. Now this is very beneficial due to if they try to attack you on the queen side, obviously remembering that they're trying to do the same thing as us, we now can use the F, G and H pawns to absolutely just build a carnage and chaos around their king. So I'll just play a few moves here, but slowly you can just see how, while they're trying to attack, it's just not going to work. We can just build our pawns up here. We can even play this. Now look, we've got 4 pawns staring down this king, and after it just takes a few more moves, and we've already built that over here, and they can't really stop it, because if they push, it opens up their king. They don't want that. And if they push here, if we take, and they take, it's probably the best idea, but now we have stuff like this. We've got this, obviously remembering the piece combination, we can use that to our benefit. So pawns here, we can kind of ruin their pawns here. If they're still going, we can do this. So we have 3 pawns against 3 pawns, and as we can see, they're trying to get to us, but they're not going to. Whereas what we're doing here is we're putting so much pressure on them, they're kind of stuck in what they can do. So hopefully you understand that when we're going over, casting queenside, which will happen in many openings that you want to do, or you can just do it in general. I think the Queen's Gambit you can do it still. It's very risky because obviously you're pushing out this C pawn and D pawn, but then what this does is when you castle queenside and they castle kingside, you can really infiltrate their attack. You see, just after 2 moves, we've already put so much pressure on. And then here, for example, we're making a knight go back, so that's all we need. And then we can have other stuff, after we push the pawns, our bishop's now good, our rooks now are active, and everything. Anyway, now we're on the last example, which is briefly talking about what a sacrifice is. So, sacrifice is where, obviously we're being attacked right now, so obviously with this, we're pinning him. Now maybe we want to keep the pin, so we're going to go back 1. Now, you'll see this a lot if they try and make the move G5. Now, obviously, it's attacking your bishop, they want you to go back here and they might want you to swap off. But what this does as well is this opens the king up quite a lot. So what we can do here is we can actually capture their pawn. Because after they capture, what we have done there is we have traded a bishop for 2 pawns. So remembering a bishop's 3 points for 2 points. We're only a point down technically. But as you see here, we're obviously technically, we've just got that piece down here, as you see here, 4 to 3 pieces, but then we have our extra 2 pawns here. Now the sacrifice is very good because they can either open up other stuff, so in this scenario, this is open up his king, so our queen can take like 3 moves and it's already pretty much in line with the king, staring down checkmate. Other ones could be you sacrifice a piece to then win a piece later on, and then there's many other ways. Sacrificing is quite it's what separates, trying to see normal stuff, like, you see a pin here, you see they're attacking you, and then making these off-centered moves, unexpected almost. You could almost capture here. I mean, yes, you lose 2 pawns this time, but again, you have this complete opening that it's kind of nearly the same thing, but you just can't bring the knight in. So, also, when you do sacrifice, it's not obviously smartest. If you do see something, make sure it's not something like you're sacrificing your queen for a pawn or something. It's got to be quite reasonable within the sacrifice. So maybe a rook for a knight, or a bishop for 2 pawns, or, a queen for 2 rooks kind of sort of thing. Anyway, that is it for today's video. Hopefully you've enjoyed on how to attack. So that is it. And thank you, and bye-bye.